And we're live. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is the show that was previously known as the TEM-FM Rhyderlong on Thursday nights. Guess what? It's no longer on TEM-FM. We've been given the boot.
We've been punted.
We've been punted. We've been
shafted, moved sideways.
moved sideways. But what we've done is we've done a very, very quick and efficient rebrand, and now you're sitting here at the new Dean and Irv show.
Because we've been silenced.
We've been silenced. Well, look, we've been attempted to be
If
silenced.
you can hear voices, it's in your own head, it's not us.
It's attempted silencing. We certainly haven't been silenced because I couldn't shut up on my best day. Until I'm sort of in a hole in the ground, I won't be shutting up anytime soon. But this is the program that was formerly known as the TEM-FM Ride-Along, or the Ride-Along on TEM-FM. So I would argue to say that currently nobody much is listening to TEM-FM tonight. I imagine there wouldn't be anything worth listening to because we're sitting here with you. And thank you for those of you who are already tuning in for a channel that had nothing on it. We were still getting subscribers all day. So there is an interest in what we've been doing. So a couple of very early disclaimers in the program. I only speak on behalf of myself. Councillor Irvine speaks on behalf of Anthony Irvine, not council. Correct. Is that correct? We've got to be very specific.
I'm a councillor on Temora Shire Council, but I'm certainly not speaking on behalf of council in this forum.
Fair play. And so
on behalf of myself, anything that I say here does not represent the views of council. They are my own views.
Are you allowed to have my own views?
Well, it's contentious. That is contentious.
That is very contentious.
Yeah.
So
that's fundamentally what brings us here most of the time.
Fundamentally, so I'm hoping people are having their drinking game every time.
Right.
Every time Anthony says fundamentally, we're going to have a shot. Or I'm not going to have a shot. Neither's Anthony. He's drinking coffee, and I'm reading this, and we'll get into that in a few minutes, ladies and gentlemen. But welcome everybody who's come along. This is going to be fun. We're going to do this every week, the same as we were doing on TEM-FM on the ride along, and we're now calling this the Spin Doctors because there's an awful lot of spin goes on in this town. They've even had another crack at it today, which I think
needs a bit of curing, doesn't it?
Look, we're going to do our very, very best.
We believe there could be a pandemic of spin.
Pandemic of spin, a big pandemic.
Don't blow it out of proportions yet. There is a possibility.
There's a very serious possibility.
The World Health Organization haven't come out of it.
Call in the UN quick. Yeah. It's all going to be happening. So let's start with TEM-FM. So, ladies and gentlemen, at the last federal election, I ran as a candidate, got 6.5% thereabouts, I believe, 6,000 votes in the area. If that number makes anybody nervous, it probably should, because to the best of my understanding, 150 votes gets you onto Shire Council. Not that I really want to be on Shire Council, but I tell you what, keep poking me in the eyes, ladies and gentlemen, and I just may come and join this man and cause a bit of a ruckus. But during that federal election, I did a couple of interviews with TEM-FM as a local candidate, guy who was, quite happy to go balls and all at Michael McCormack. And then I was asked to do a show because apparently I'm not bad at speaking off the cuff. Who would have thought? I've got a head for radio, but now you're going to have to look at me.
Yes.
That's
the drawback.
That's the drawback. Sorry, guys. I'll understand and I'll accept. But so I took on a role, and the agreement and the proviso that I put forward when discussing all this was, one, I will do my very best to limit any bad language. And, these days, it's a bit of a, certain words offend certain people, trying to be somewhere in the middle there. But I was quite happy to do my very best to ensure that there wasn't bad language. And the other thing I made very, very clear when I first stepped into the building was that I wasn't going to be censored by anyone for anything at all. That's not going to happen. I'm not going to hold my tongue on sensitive issues. That's the whole purpose of me spending 3 hours doing it.
It's interesting you say that, because I, just on the follow-up of what's gone down in the last week, I went on the ACMA website, and I went on the Australian Broadcasting Board's website and looked into the codes of conduct. And
sure,
it's not condoned that a management will, what would you say, interfere with the editorial content of a show.
Well, I wouldn't think that they should be. No.
And so back to your point was, and you basically stipulated that I'm in charge of my editorial content. Don't censor me. This is
the 2 hours a week where they're going to get straight talk, straight shoot, love me, hate me, tune in deliberately or by accident. And we made that disclaimer pretty well weekly. And
so have you ever been subject to any complaints from ACMA? Have you ever been?
No. I did get a letter during the Voice to Parliament debate from But that wasn't just for me. That was the entire station from the Australian Broadcasting, whichever monkeys that lot are that are in charge, telling us that if we wish to discuss the voice to Parliament on community radio, we had to be pro the yes debate, which I was obviously very staunch on the fact that no, we shouldn't be enshrining race in the Constitution. So I did the thing that I do, which I did the other night when I got the letter from these characters down here at the radio station, and I read the letter pretty much verbatim or close enough to it live on air, and basically said, well, no, I won't be participating in such nonsense. Now, I've given the board at TEM-FM a couple of goes at understanding that I'm not there to be controlled opposition and I'm not there to be sort of managed. This is the content of my programming for this period of time. If people don't like it, I'm more than welcome to tune out. Tune in, go watch Channel 10. I'm sure Waleed Ali's on TV or on the ABC or whatever. Go nuts, fill your boots. This is kind of what we do, and this is how, we're tackling the real issues, and we're happy to tackle them honestly and openly. I've got nothing to hide. I know this little organisation here thought they've been exposing some stuff lately, but realistically, they're not finding anything new. So all my skeletons live out on the table. That's where I keep them generally. I've never had any problems with answering questions when asked. And have I done some things that I probably shouldn't do? Oh, God, yes. Done plenty of things that I shouldn't do. The only variable with me is a lot more people seem to be watching, which that's okay. If you're looking at me and taking shots at me, hopefully you're leaving some poor innocent bastard alone, I reckon.
Yeah, and I think obviously with that most recent situation where the paper did have a fairly big shot at you, well, that's
I think I took that in good spirits, though. I think to
put a fine point on it, you stuffed up, but you owned up, and you've been to court. You've done they've doled out the punishment. You've accepted the punishment. You've
absolutely no excuses. Just
yeah, and that's part of the process, isn't it? And I think that's the whole thing. One of the things I find with a lot of the political stuff is there's constant issues where people seemingly do the wrong thing but aren't held to account.
Absolutely. And won't claim accountability either. I use Barnaby as an example in a video. Now I know a lot of people into more old school Nationals supporters and fans, and
yes.
The Barnabys are, whatever. And I find Barnaby fun to watch as well, can't lie. But when he was rolling drunk in Canberra, he'd come out with all these bullshit excuses. We're allowed to say that because we're not TEM-FM anymore. We'll still try to be relatively PG, but he came out with a trove of bullshit excuses. Here's the bottom line, Barnaby. You get paid a truckload of money on the taxpayer dollar. There is a certain amount of behaviours probably that are somewhat expected from someone who's on the taxpayer dollar. I don't accept $1 from the taxpayer. I get nothing. Nobody pays me. I'm self-sufficient, so to speak. And he was rolling drunk. Do you know why? Because the whole place is full of booze and sex and bad behaviour. Let's be fair. The Brittany Higgins thing went on. That's pretty common in our parliamentary environment.
It was only when Perrottet was the Premier of New South Wales, I think he was directly following Gladys.
Yes.
That they had a inquiry into...
Well, because Gladys certainly wasn't
sexual
involved.
abuse and bullying in Parliament House in Parliament in New South Wales. It seems to go hand in hand with politicians now.
Absolutely.
Is that a commentary on politicians, or is it a commentary on the system, or is it...
You want my honest opinion? It's a commentary on the fact that as much as they like to not pretend that they're human, they are human, and they do dumb shit like all of us do sometimes, often, and we're not always perfect. I'm certainly never claimed to be even close to perfect. But what happens in Parliament is they've got an awful lot of dough. They've got an awful lot of time. They've got scrutiny that provides a different level of pressure, a level of pressure you've started to experience since becoming a councillor. You're in the public eye. People are asking questions of you. You've got to be a bit more accountable and a bit more... I guess aware, but Barnaby rolling drunk should have just got up instead of saying, there's some nonsense about he was on his meds or, bullshit, Barnaby. You get up, you got smashed, you got rollicking drunk, you had a good time, and of course it's 2024, so if you fart inappropriately, some clown's going to be there with the camera, particularly if you've got a modest profile.
Yeah, it is. That's the whole thing, and it's something that fortunately I didn't have to live through when I was a kid, because I probably wouldn't be able to show my face in public. But
that's most. But again, you just own stuff. I'd have more faith in these politicians that are elected if they just come out, say I'm good at this, did that, blew that, that was a mistake. Yeah, whatever.
Back to your intro. We've got the preamble as to how you came to be on TEM-FM. How long have you been there?
We're well over 12 months, so probably a year and a bit. So probably 18 months, give or take.
Okay, now how many shows have you missed?
I've missed 2 in that time.
Yep.
And during that time, we've had some pretty big guests.
Yeah, but hang on. So, and you've got a pretty good local following, and you've got a following away from Temora as well. So that's something you've built up over that period.
I think we've developed a solid following of people who, one, like the straight talk, you know, and there's probably a certain amount of people that follow the radio show as it was, you know, trying to catch me out on A, B's and C's. So I'm sure there's an element of that. I don't have any formal ratings. Nobody could give me that. But, you know, I know that TEM-FM's Facebook page has about 600 followers.
Yes.
Temora Independent, I think, has about 3,000 followers, give or take. Yeah. And when you look at my ride-along page, I think it's about 400 or 500. You look at my Spirit of Determination page, I think it's 1,500 thereabouts, and there's about 2,500 people on just my general Facebook. Yeah. And quite often, you know, they're people either I know, I'm related to, or who follow, you know, me for my, I guess, what's considered libertarian commentary.
Okay, so what do you reckon the Independent's got 3,000 odd followers on social media?
That's something close to there, yeah, thereabouts.
And that's a publication that's been in circulation for 137 years, and it's basically the news source for a 6,000 population shire, plus it serves communities in Coolman Shire as well. So, you know, fair enough. I reckon you're punching okay.
Look, mate, I'm punching okay. Based on today's paper, of which I was one of the headlines. The other headline's a $95 million Temora Health upgrade.
That's not.
And then the next page over that doesn't include me is the Red Shield Appeals broken record. They've made some money and a 50-kilogram drug bust. So in the scope of this paper's news, I'm
here. Front page. You're going all right.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
TEM-FM announcer suspended.
I'll tell you what, that is serious business in a little town like Temora, where if you're at the point where you are looking for a bit of truth, justice, and you know, at least honesty, even if you disagree with me on stuff, you know, I shoot straight. And we're struggling to trust our radio station. We're struggling to trust the Temora Independent.
Well, I'm struggling to trust the Temora Independent because I don't know who wrote this. And I don't know whether they wrote it at the bar of one of the local hotels after a big night, but there's a line in here on page 2 that says, it's expected that both Councillor Irvine and Mr McRae will contest the TEM-FM board's decision. No. No, my ute hasn't got a rearview mirror.
we certainly won't be looking to go back and prop up a failing radio station.
Look, this is far more comfortable.
Oh, mate, this is a pleasure. This is a delight.
It's got far more, what would you say? There's much less personality in the fragrance of the place. It did have a bit of a smell there. It was look.
And I've got to be fair down there at the radio. Look, I can arguably reach out to a far bigger audience doing this sort of thing. Always could, always had. I actually saw it as a bit of I know I'm by court order doing community service, where I might add they're having a good time with me hanging out. But I saw it as a bit of a community contribution for me to go down there and keep this little station that's sort of chugging sideways at best in line. It
was chugging sideways at best. I think they've just given themselves a massive uppercut. In the soccer parlance, it's a bit of an own goal, isn't it?
Swanton bomb, suicide dive, what do you want to call it?
Yeah, but I still can't get my head around. Like, I published, I sent the chairman a letter.
You sent a letter, yes, relative to censoring an elected local council.
So over a week ago.
Yeah.
And I just asked for a response by yesterday, and I've received no response.
I'm stunned.
But it was a pretty simple letter.
I don't know. Have you seen some of the letters and emails I've been receiving, mate? Simple, probably, even for me with my limited writing skills.
Lucky some of them are on radio.
I tell you what,
because they couldn't be in print.
Yeah, that's it. And I've never claimed to be a writer, and I've certainly never charged $2.50 for this sort of garbage. But
so
what did you say in your letter, Herb?
Fundamentally, though.
Fundamentally, take a shot. Take a shot.
I've just asked the board to provide a copy of their community broadcasting licence, and to specify the sections of the licence they're referencing when deciding to censor me.
Yes.
And provide any other reasons they rely upon to censor me.
Yeah.
And there's no response. So,
well, because there is no fact basis. In fact, I made the mention the first night that I suspect there may be higher powers, if you will, tapping the guys on the shoulder there, saying you will do and you will shut this pair up. Because look, let's be realistic. There is an absolute concern amongst, we'll call them the powers that be, the old boys club, as I've sort of dubbed them online and wherever else, who are absolutely shitting bricks that they're going to lose a little bit of control in this space. But I'd like to remind them that, look,
well, I think I have to certainly consider that as a possibility, because I did find the radio provided a good opportunity
for you to refute nonsense and bullshit.
Well, it's more independent. I have found prints a large amount of misinformation.
Well, we've pointed some of that out using our social media platforms,
and
because it's 2024 and we've got social media, so
and the
these things are dead. The radios,
that was what the radio. That's what I found was helpful on the radio.
Yes,
was the ability to correct some of the misinformation.
Yep,
and to challenge the narrative that was being put forward by that organisation.
These media outlets that,
and I can't help but see that since I announced that I was going to run for council way back in March 2021, I've copped nothing but a flogging off the paper.
Oh, you've been less popular than what I've been.
Oh, I'm telling you, like, I'm special. I'm that special.
Like, I mean, look, they're getting a kick out of using me to try and sell papers, and I'm going to keep giving them content. But what I'm not going to do is, I gave the paper the option the other day. If you saw the Facebook post, and I did have another councillor, as the first other councillor that's reached out in any way, shape or form on Facebook to mention that my writing style sucks. Fair point. I agree with you, but I'm not a writer. I'm not an editor. I don't have writers and editors. I quite literally type the way I talk. And I'm not going to make any apologies for it, because I don't make any money doing it. It's nothing to do with me whatsoever, other than I'm just going to be very transparent and clear with the people of this community. If I have an interaction with a media outlet that I'm struggling to trust, i.e. the Timor Independent, or currently TEM-FM or any other regional, local, hell, I don't care if it's Prime News, Sky News, Foxtel, it makes no difference to my day. I've long dissipated any fears or concern about what media may or may not try to do to me. I know they're still taking shots at you, and if they want to sell paper off my back, my reputation, whatever, cool, go for it. All publicity is good publicity. But here's the kicker: I'm not going to be giving you any free kicks. If I'm giving you quotes, I want the entire quote printed. If I'm going to say something to the media, I want you print the whole lot, show the whole lot. Otherwise, don't talk to me. No, I'm not interested in helping you sell papers if I can't be honest and direct, and you want to cherry pick the bits that suit your narrative. This little story here is mostly.
I've drawn the line. I'm not going to sell one paper for them.
No, well, I gave them the option there with the other day with this story when they asked.
No, they've rang me on multiple occasions to contribute to their content, and the most recent opportunity I gave them, I had a couple of interactions with one of their reporters until we corrected their what would you say, the quotes that they were going to quote me on. To the point that I was satisfied that they accurately represented my views, and the story got pulled.
But even if you do,
the story got pulled.
Of course it did. So that's bullshit.
So as soon as they get somewhere close to the truth, it goes in the shredder.
Oh, mate, there's an allergy to harsh truth in this joint.
I'm at the point now where it's just like, no, go and do your job, sell your own papers. I'm not selling it for you. And again, there's a myriad of avenues that are open to us. And
this was just the easiest one that took us 10 minutes to knock together. And
even to the point, it was good going to the radio station. It was easy. I could go in when I felt like it. If I had something else on, I didn't have to go.
Yeah, I know. All the commitment was on me showing up every week.
Yeah, but all they've done is just force us to go global and to get the story circulated wider.
Absolutely. And look, as this program progresses, I'm going to be calling in other councillors, other super friends, you know, like as I mentioned before, the TEM-FM radio station.
Yeah,
while I
was
was
there,
long
list of
we had some pretty impressive folks come on with former Queensland Premier Campbell Newman, Mark Latham, who was an ALP opposition leader for a period of time. He's still in Parliament. John, you know, I can get some pretty cool names. We've had Neighbours stars on Temora Radio.
Yeah.
That wasn't there due to, I don't know, the four old boys or, you know, which, look, hey, whatever they call themselves, you know, like, and that's cool. I mean, I got no personal issues with most of these people, right? But what I am getting to the point is I'm not going to keep taking my foot off their neck when they continuously go out of their way to poke me in the fucking eye.
Oh, well, that's the whole thing. I find it offensive when a newspaper flogs shit out of you every edition for 3 months.
Yeah.
Then ring you up for comment or something.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you're not going to comment for that.
Bye. I can think of a few comments for you.
Yeah, bye.
You know, like, I mean.
And look, and what they're doing, look, and I've said this before, I think Temora needs a good newspaper.
Well, they don't need it anymore. Now, if you want news, you're going to get it from us.
Temora, as a community, I think a good newspaper is great. I like looking in the newspaper and reading it. It's just part of my, I've grown up doing it. It's just something I enjoy doing. But, you know, and I've said this before, I think newspaper editors are like publicans.
Yes.
And the newspaper in a town is like the pub. And every local owns that paper.
Absolutely.
And, you know, whilst the editor might have the keys, he is a custodian and a caretaker.
Absolutely.
And you can get absolute ripping blokes who read the local community and they deliver the product that the people want, and they really know.
Well, I suppose arguably we are the product that people want. That's why we're on the front page of the paper every 15 minutes.
But coming back to this, but then you get periods where you got a guy who just doesn't know what he's doing, or he's got a different agenda, or he's actually got an axe to grind, or he's being directed by others, or
the puppet masters. Now, speaking of puppet masters,
back to that, I'm still purchasing the paper.
Oh, cross.
I like the people that work down. You know what I mean? And they're all part of the community. But there's something that's really bent and broken about it at the moment. And you know, there's new owners there.
Well, I heard there's new owners.
Maybe they've got obviously they've got experience. They own a lot of newspaper mastheads. They might have.
Well, if they keep this shit up, they'll be singing for their supper. They'll be out on the side of the road with a tin cup going, donate. We'll sing for charity.
Go and look at the
we'll sing for cash.
The share price of 7 West Media at the moment.
Well, that's right. All of the traditional media is this far from deceased, and the more of this sort of nonsense that they do,
now,
the less their credibility counts for anything.
I think they just sacked 100.
Now, no idea.
I think Costello's just jumped ship at 9. After sacking a couple there, it's like the whole thing is imploding.
Traditional media's been on the decline. The internet's had a massive amount to do with it. You know, we've got these dinosaurs here who are absolutely determined to have us do their extinction level event running these joints, who seem to think that, well, we can just shut these guys up. How dare they question the things they want to question?
1950.
Absolutely. 137-year-old publication.
Yes.
They've just moved from 2 copies a week to 1 copy a week. They've put their price to $2.50. Now, I only skimmed this when we first got in here today. There's 7 photos of the mayor in the thing.
Yes. Well, they've got
the mayor's mother can't have this many photos of him on her shelf at home. It's not possible. My mother's only got 2 photos. They've
only got 1 paper to put them in.
You know, it's just nonsense.
No, well, that's how.
How it is. Oh, look, I'm only going to say stuff that most of Temora already thinks and already knows. And again, nothing personal, but there's no chance in the wide world my mother has 7 photos of me sitting next to her bed. She's got 1 in the living room next to my brother and my sister, and that's kind of it. The mayor's mother only needs this to get 7 photos. That's outrageous, especially when other councillors are being silenced. And especially outrageous when the other councillors who may or may not want to say anything other than yourself are encouraged not to speak unless authorised.
There's a media policy, there's a social media policy, and basically what it says is shut your mouth, I'll do the talking, get in the background, And, anything good that's happened, I'll take credit for. Anything bad that's happened, I don't know about it.
It must be Irvine's fault.
Yeah.
And here's the bit that pisses me off about this, right? Or what you've just said, this media policy. I don't know who brought it in, don't know when it was brought in. It needs to be repealed. Let me just say, if I do put my hand up for council, one of the first motions I'll be putting forward is to repeal bullshit social media policies.
This is the whole thing. And I've got budget estimates up here because I was catching up on a bit of that stuff. It's riveting stuff. But Ron Honig, the Minister for Local Government, has basically said that the restrictions that the Code of Conduct and media policies and those things place on councillors are unsustainable because the High Court has upheld the right for freedom of expression and freedom of political expression.
Right, so, absolutely.
And what do people vote for you for?
And I made a fairly poignant comment, I think, on that got me banned from Temora Community Announcements on one of those pages, where I basically said, what is the point in us as citizens electing 9 councillors if the councillors we elect are then expected to just shut up, toe the line, do as they're told? I voted for you. There's probably no secret or surprise there. And I know other people may have voted for Jason Good. Yeah. We'll use Jason as an example. No, again, nothing personal. There are people who voted for Jason because they like what he stands for and how he operates. To them, fair play. I mean, I don't know Jason that well, to be honest. So I can't.
But to that end, is there any single council issue that you're aware of that Mr. Good's?
Nothing. I don't know what his position is, and I'd like to know, because next time I go to the election, I might think I've had enough of this guy by the election. Yeah, might have driven me nuts by then, and I might be going, right, who am I giving my primary vote to? And I don't know anything about these people. The only 2 people on council who fundamentally, look at that.
You've called it.
I've got the bug. Shot time, guys. But no, the only 2 people that we hear from are the mayor, who gets 6 photos in the paper. Speaking of which, they use the same photo from the federal election. These guys can't even be bothered to get
for you. Well, we do know that they used a photo off your Facebook page.
Yeah, so surely they could get a modern and updated photo. Like, I mean,
that was when they were flogging me. That was on my when they had on the front page the Code of Conduct.
Yes, and they cut it. I mean, we could do this all day. Yeah. But we kind of know what the mayor arguably stands for, at least publicly. We get to see what he thinks about certain topics. On some of them, I even agree with him. That's fine. Others, I don't. This guy, I agree with on probably, I reckon we're about 80%, and there are other things. There's a few things there that we would argue pretty vehemently against. But I want to know what all the other councillors think about stuff. I want to know what their position on. I don't even care if it's the tree project. I don't care if it's the centenary project. I don't care if it's the big, what was it, the bypass. The bypass made the paper.
I've had a funny little knack of suggesting something, and then 12 months later, it might be adopted quietly.
It's a good idea, but we don't want to admit it. Yes, of course.
And the tree policy is one of those ones that
which I can give a shit about a tree policy. Personally, I couldn't care less, right? And a lot of people don't care about.
No, but we were talking about the tree policy recently, and I was one of the only people in town to put a submission in.
Yes.
And part of the submission was this: there are people in town who want to put plantings on the nature strip, and if they make application to council, guess what council tells them? No, you can't. Okay, but if you go and plant a tree on the nature strip without asking permission, guess what? Council don't rip it out.
Really, right.
So basically, don't ask permission. Go and do what you like.
Well, that's my general policy with council anyway.
And that was my point.
Like whatever.
But my point is this: that you're punishing the people who are seeking
your approval and trying to do the right thing. And that's the problem with all these things.
They're actually taking some of the load off you by buying the tree, planting the tree, watering the tree, looking after the tree.
But you've got to be able to justify the rate rises, you see.
For the tree that they've bought and watered and looked after. Yeah, that's right.
That's how it works.
So, like I say, anyway, there's just been a review of the street tree policy, and council have softened their stance on that, and I think they are going to allow some minor plantings on the nature strip.
Mate, I've said to you for a long time now, like 4 or 5 years we've been involved in this specific project, and I've always said I've got no interest in local politics, and it's shit like that is the reason why I don't. I'm sitting here kind of going, I couldn't sit through a meeting about the tree policy if my life depended on it.
But when you drive down, look, and this,
I don't pay any attention. I'm telling you.
No, but we've got.
I'd privatise the parks.
We've got 300 plane trees planted in the CBD urban area of Temora.
Yeah.
Right. Now, say over the course of the next 10 years, each one of those needs $5,000 worth of maintenance.
Yeah.
That's $1.5 million.
Yes.
Real.
I don't want to pay for that. Just let the trees die.
Well, but what about the ones that are planted, and they might grow to 20 metres, but some have been planted under power lines?
Well, that's not well thought out, whoever did that.
No, and you'd hope that someone pulls them aside and gives them the what would you say, the botanical habit of these trees, and just says, look, son,
probably
this one's
not
going to end up big. Don't put it under power.
And you can have a common sense discussion about it. I don't know what we're going to pay councillors for. No, I mean, and look.
No, but this is the funny thing. Sometimes, and look, I know what you're saying. Sometimes,
look, I'm
on
the fringe of.
You can sit there in some of the conversations. It really hurts your head.
Oh, look, and I'll struggle to do it. Yeah. Unfortunately, if I do decide to run and anybody does vote for me, please be aware that arguably I'll be just running a libertarian anarchist campaign, and I will be. And if I was to go into council, here would be the points: cut costs, and arguably, if it needs to cut services to do that, I'd be trying to privatise the parks.
No, but
I'd be trying to get rid of all of them.
Recently, and one of these budget estimates hearings, the Minister for Local Government has stated clearly that the costs within councils are so opaque and non-transparent that a councillor has no possibility of understanding the cost base of the council.
No, of course not. And it's by design.
It is intentional. I'm sure it's
intentional to keep the council, poor buggers who do go into council. And fundamentally, do the shot. Sorry, guys.
All right.
I'm on fire, yeah. But, the people, I honestly believe most people who go into councils, including the people who are on council here, go into it with the right intentions of they think they're going to do a really good job for the community. They want to do a good job for the community. I don't always necessarily agree with the way they're going about it, but I don't think any of them go in there and go, right, I'm going to be a disaster. If they do that, then we're in even more trouble than I thought. But it's set up so that nobody can ever figure this out. It's the most retarded jigsaw puzzle on the planet. And, I sit there and we're going to get onto this any second now because we're going to try and keep the program to about an hour, guys.
But back to that point, and there was an article that I think you may have shared, or I picked it up from the Sydney Morning Herald, that said out of 128 councils in New South Wales, about 50% of the CEOs had been turned over in this period of local government since the last election.
Yeah.
50 out of 128. So
best I can tell, we're employing 2 of them. So we can donate 1. I'd arguably donate 2 or 3.
But think about it this way. We've got a situation, the only oversight that the governing body has is over the general manager.
Yeah.
Because the governing body has not got any say on any other member of staff.
Yes.
So the only person that the governing body can actually influence is the general manager. Now, there is some talk in that article that this turnover rate's too high. They're politicising the role, and perhaps they should make it an award position. And I'm thinking, okay, so the governing body won't have any say over the general manager either.
Yeah, right.
Well,
so then that makes council even less effective than it already is.
Why have a governing body?
Yes.
What are they there for? Look, I
ask that all the time. What are they there for? I reckon we could get rid of 90% of all government officials, and I reckon nobody would notice for at least 6 months.
Well, I think there is a very, very thin facade there where the general public, the population, do not realise just how limited the influence of a councillor is.
Yes.
And how
people think you guys absolutely are pulling all the strings in all areas.
No, we cannot do bugger all a lot of the time, and it is designed that way. And even to the point where if council officers make a massive blue, and a councillor was to lambaste them in a meeting, then the councillor more than likely will face a code of conduct, or worse, there'll be some work health and safety intervention because you've spoken, you've brought to the fore the fact that the person's made a mistake.
Yeah, well, that could hurt their feelings.
Well,
every kid gets a trophy, right?
But these are people who are on solid salaries.
So, all right, let's do this for the video.
So it's at the point now where a councillor can't even be critical of a general manager. They can't be critical of senior staff. They can't be critical of council's decisions. They can't have an opinion unless it's a positive opinion.
Which is nonsense, because that's not how the world works.
Well, but that's how they want it.
So, all right. So let's do this. What is, even a ballpark figure, it doesn't need to be down to the dollar, because I'm sure people still want to know, roughly what's a GM in Temora get?
The GM, that is a publicly...
I know it's publicly available, hence why I'm comfortable in asking it.
In the council figures, it's
roughly
in the ballpark of 300k.
300k a year to be general manager of a population of 6,000.
Well, it's about $1 per person per week on that rate.
Well, that's pretty good money. So you'd want to be pretty accountable for that money, as far as I'm concerned. You want to give me 300 grand a year, I'll be answering the questions of the community and the councillors, because that's just kind of how it's supposed to be.
It's not a bad gig. 9-day fortnight.
9-day fortnight. Yeah, right.
4 weeks holidays.
Yeah, right. Do they actually get that 9-day fortnight? Because I know, look, I was a chef for a long time, and
they take it.
And you'd get your, they'd be like, oh, you're working this many days. Nobody ever had days off. Nobody ever got holidays, and you'd work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The head chef salary, actually, when you break it down hour by hour, you're on about $3 an hour. It's a good up number, but you don't have a life whatsoever.
The up number's not 6k.
No, not that sort of up number. No.
So there's a little bit of room to move here.
Well, we can improve this system. All right. So then the next question, because let's be fair, everybody's been talking about, you and I sort of highlighted it on the ride along that was previously on another platform. The Gary Lavelle business. Now,
well,
and this is again
where our friends at the Independent are still trying to peddle this line that somehow I'm a conspiracy theorist and I'm making unsubstantiated claims that the deed of separation proves that Mr. Lavelle's employed despite retiring last year. That's a statement in a recent article of the Temora Independent. Now, I've got a recent letter from the current general manager that says that Mr. Lavelle is currently employed by Temora Shire Council and has been since the 1st of July.
So there's written proof that is.
So currently, Mr. Lavelle is employed.
Okay.
Not as the general manager.
And again, it's not even a sting on Gary, but people are now asking, because these are hot topics that are coming up.
Well, everyone in town... and I've asked.
We had a parade for Gary.
But I've asked a number of people just in the street, and I've said, "Do you know what Gary Lavelle's up to at the moment?" And they say, "Oh, he's retired. He's travelling around. I think he's in his caravan."
Yeah.
And I say, "Are you aware that he's still employed by council?" And they say, "No, he's retired."
And we don't know how much for.
No. Well, I've asked, and
I'd like to know that, because I can't imagine it's an insignificant sum.
And they've told me that's none of my business.
And again, it's not even a shot at Gary. I don't actually particularly care who the name and the face is, and I feel the same with most political people and people in those high government roles, like this Mostyn Sheila that's getting a gig as the Governor General. If the role's a piss take role, it needs to be abolished. And if Mr. Lavelle, who we had a 2-year farewell party for, we, as a community, there was dinners and the papers, everybody was really, really excited to farewell him. Now, if it was a case of, mate, look, here's your long service leave, take that and go touring, whatever the case, most people go after 30 years of service, fair call. Is it something like that?
I've got no idea. I don't know, and that's the problem. I'm not being told, and I've asked multiple occasions, and I've put a notice of motion in for 3 consecutive, no, not consecutive, but 3 meetings recently.
So for the audience, well, I was going to say listeners, but now we've got an audience.
A question at council, I have to put a notice of motion. I have to put it in prior to the meeting, and there's a certain time period that has to be.
So, and you put a notice of motion in?
3 notices of motions in for 3 meetings.
All different notices of motion, or are you just trying to get one thing up?
Well, it's a series of questions relative to this matter.
Yep, fair enough.
I've been told that the questions have been deemed unlawful by the general manager, and they're refusing.
Does the general manager have a law degree?
No, but the general manager is relying on some legal advice.
Yeah, right.
So the general manager is
refusing. Hang on, legal advice. So we're paying for that as well.
I don't know how that works. It's come from Local Government New South Wales, a legal advisor at Local Government New South Wales. Now, I think Temora Shire Council pay a membership to local government New South Wales, and it may be part of member services.
Right.
I'm not sure. So I haven't asked those details. But
pardon me.
But basically, I've asked the same sort of questions you're asking.
Yes, but you're under different rules. So just again, people don't always know the rules are very different. For an elected councillor, they basically get a proverbial gun put to their head. These are the new rules that you must adhere to.
Yes.
And there is a process. Now, Councillor Irvine's dancing around which parts of the process are just, which are unjust. The Minister for Local Government, Ron Honig, who's not that bloke, but the other bloke on the screen a minute ago, he's actually come out and basically said it's a councillor's duty to challenge some of these things and to ask questions and to represent the people, not the council, because the council is an entity. It's not a real thing.
Yeah, what the thing I'm struggling with at the moment is Ron Honig is on the public record as saying that the current code of conduct system is broken.
Yes.
It's not fit for purpose.
I thought it was laughable when I read
Under the previous government, there was a inquiry or anyway, it was a report was handed down by Mr. Keller, I think.
Right.
And there were recommendations regarding the code of conduct. Now, at budget estimates, Mr. Honig was asked whether he was going to adopt the recommendations of the Keller report. And Mr. Honig's comments, and this was back in November, were that the system is that broken, I'm not going to put sticky tape on something that's just so... No, it's so broken, he said it has to be rebuilt.
Yep.
Now, from where I sit, though, we've got an Office of Local Government Minister who's saying the system is so broken.
Yeah.
But he hasn't put a halt to the system being used.
Which I'm a bit
concerned because I think he's got a duty of care. If he knows the system is that broken, why does he allow it to continue? Surely.
What handcuffs are on him at that level? Because the handcuffs that they're trying to put on you.
He's got this whole system. He's got the legal element of it.
Yeah.
And there's acts and there's legislation.
And now this code of conduct malarkey. How many code of conducts have been doled out on councillors in Temora in the last 100 years, 50 years, whatever?
I don't know. I made an inquiry in the last 10 years prior to
you setting records.
Prior to recently, there'd been none.
None. So none in the last decade. How many have you got in the last couple of months?
No, well, I can only talk.
Any? I know you got one because there's one on the front page of the paper.
That's the only one I'm actually legally allowed to talk about. So that's another part of the process that I find a little bit disturbing. No, listen to this as a process. They can a complainant.
Yes, okay, cool.
Can make a complaint to the general manager.
Yep.
In the case of a councillor, can make a complaint to the general manager. If the general manager deems that there may be a code of conduct matter to investigate, they can engage an investigator and they'll conduct an investigation.
Right. Where do they get the investigator from? What qualifications do you need?
There's a panel of investigators that have been pre-selected, so they've got a group that they can select.
Okay, right. It's not Inspector Gadget or Get Smart coming in from wherever.
Well, they're private industry entities, so there is a fee-for-service type arrangement here.
Of course there is.
But, that's the system that they've established.
Yeah.
So then... the accused person has got an opportunity to make some submissions and other people would be consulted and they can have second and third hand and fourth hand hearsay, gossip, whatever else it might be, and they can include all of that in their report. And then if the investigator deems, they can find you guilty.
Right.
And then they can dole out recommendations for the punishments. And then the council may or may not adopt those punishments and the process rolls on. It's supposed to stay confidential even after the point where you've been found guilty and they've used all the evidence and you've really got no right to say, hang on, I don't agree with that. There's no, from what I can gather, there's no appeals mechanism unless they get to the point where they're going to suspend you or dock your pay or something like that. So they can go right up to the point where they're going to sack you before you actually get a chance to
defend your case, plead your case.
Well, to actually get some due process and to have the evidence investigated in what would you say, like a court, like, you know, so that the evidence that they can use up to that point doesn't have to meet the level that it would to have you removed.
Yeah, right. Okay.
But at that point, how much damage have they done to you,
To
your
reputation, your business, your life, your family?
It's a lot.
It's a bullying technique.
Well, it's
clearly.
a lot like the issues that people talk about with ICAC.
Yep.
Now, there's been multiple people who've been accused publicly at ICAC. They've been investigated. They've been found to have breached this and breached that and breached something else. And sometimes the facts that ICAC have relied upon aren't the facts that you would have to rely upon in a court.
Yeah.
So they've been sort of found guilty, but
not guilty. It's a loaded thing, and the destruction's already been done.
Well, these people have lost their careers. They've had their whole, and it's real, and it happens,
and it's disgusting.
Well, that's the knock on ICAC, isn't it? That's the one thing that people get most frustrated with ICAC.
We did a debate during the federal election. Mr. McCormack was at the table. I was at the table. Other candidates were at the table. And we had a fella who come storming in, very enthusiastic fella, former lawyer, I'm told, in hindsight, sort of demanding that, would you vote for an ICAC into, the federal government and into, all whatever. He rattled off quite a few things. And every single person other than myself said, yes, I would support an ICAC, including Mr. McCormack, agreed that he should have an ICAC into himself, arguably.
This is at a national level.
This is at a national level.
Yes.
And when I said no, of course, the room went, oh. And I said, ICACs have no teeth. They're very expensive. They're generally a waste of time. And if people are innocent, they're found guilty anyway of something that they may or may not have done. Now, if an ICAC's got enough teeth to actually make sure the guilty are treated like guilty, if they didn't cost an absolute bomb of taxpayer money, and, if it didn't have all that extra, i.e., the people who are innocent being dragged through ICACs, and we've seen it. We see it in marriages. We see it in false accusations. We see it in whistleblowers. Whistleblowers is huge at the moment. Julian,
when you step into a court of law, there's a presumption of innocence. Well, that doesn't exist at ICAC.
No, and that's the problem I have with all these things.
That's a bit of a problem I find with in my experience with the code of conduct process.
Yes, you're guilty, not innocent.
Oh, you are guilty, and they will just say,
we will prove that you're guilty, no matter what we've got to do.
And we'll ignore certain facts that don't suit our narrative.
Yes,
and that is 100%.
Yep.
But the thing is, the whole process is fairly toothless until you get into the higher levels of corrupt conduct or misconduct.
Yeah, well,
because the most that the Office of Local Government can hand out, the highest penalty the Office of Local Government can hand out is a 3-month suspension.
Yeah, right.
And that gets handed out to the worst offenders. And then if they wish to have you disqualified, then they have to, unless you commit a serious criminal offence, which automatically disqualifies you.
Yeah.
So they don't have to think about that.
Yeah.
They have to take it to the to NCAT. So the process has to run through NCAT. And there would be some thoroughness to that process, because the rulings that NCAT make have to be sound in law.
Yes, okay.
So, you know what I mean? Because they've got to be lawful. So, in an example that's just come up recently, there's a couple of councillors that used to be on the Georges River Council. One of them is the Office of Local Government attempting to have them disqualified from holding public office at NCAT.
Right.
Now, the discussion that I heard about this was from a March meeting.
Yeah.
And I don't know how long this matter's been in train, but the local government elections are in September.
Yes.
And the hearing at NCAT isn't going to be, they've been told off the record, but, as an indication, that the matters won't be heard until November. So technically this person who's facing disqualification at NCAT can run for local government, can be elected to local government, be sitting on a council, And then at some point in November or December or January or February or March or April or May or whenever into the future, the rug can be pulled and they can be disqualified, and there'll be either a by-election or some mechanism to.
So it's a broken system.
It is absolutely dysfunctional, and there is, from what I can see, it's so open to abuse.
Yep.
It's so open to subjectiveness. It's so open to opinion. And people can reject evidence. And I found that the whole process from where I sit has been extraordinarily disappointing. That said, I don't believe I've done anything that's going to warrant anything even remotely even remotely approaching any of the matters that I've just mentioned. So, they want to flog me. They want to make me shut my mouth. They want to make me pull my head in. They want to make me stop doing what I got in council to do.
Yes, and that's
what I find frustrating. And this is the thing. I got on council not because I wanted to be part of that great, well-functioning team. I got on council because I was a little bit frustrated with the way I'd been treated with a number of matters.
Yes.
And I came out publicly, and everyone who voted for me knew
that was the platform,
that I wasn't particularly happy with the way it was running. And I thought that perhaps it was time to maybe make a change.
And let me tell you, there have been other councillors over the years that have attempted similar things. They go in with really all the best intentions, or with a bugbear or something they want to fix, and then they get in there and they get stifled, or they experience. Are we allowed to call? I'd call it bullying, right? I would call what's been going on to be fairly serious.
If it's not bullying, then it's akin to some sort of a psychological.
It's definitely a game.
Yes.
And it's definitely a lot of manipulation involved. Gaslighting's thick and fast, which I guess in my head, I'm pretty old school. I don't care. You want to bully me, I'll bully you back. I don't care. Ask the paper, ask the radio station. But this is what goes on in these offices, and this is what seems to be. You were on the front page with your code of conduct. Councillor Irvine's a naughty boy. Naughty boy. I can't remember the headline.
100% guilty.
Now, for the people who don't follow Councillor Irvine's Facebook page, or mine, or anybody else, if this is your only source of local information on what's going on, and you read Councillor Irvine is a bad boy without having ever met him, you're just going to take the word of the 7-page bloody farce. Now, that's why we're going to do this a little bit, because that's the sort of stuff that goes on. I opened the radio station up while I was doing my program down there to Councillor Irvine because he didn't have a platform to express his. Now, I said every week on that platform that any other council representatives, but general managers, one of the 25 general managers we're employing at any given time.
I've employed alternative media to get my message out there, but I've been flogged for
using social media.
Yeah.
Which happens to councillors all around Australia. Please don't think this just happens here.
No. This
is I've got a list
of systemic issue.
Absolutely, and I've got councillors all over the country who I interact with fairly regularly who are experiencing similar circumstances with this sort of shit. Councillor Irvine's not special in this particular treatment. These are strategies and tactics that are used by the machine regularly to batter everybody into that submission.
On my Facebook page, Anthony Irvine Stand Up for Tomorrow.
Yeah.
If you go on there and you scroll back a couple of weeks, you'll find some publicity or some news articles around Kiama Municipal Council and Councillor Renka Malang, who was censured by council for speaking her mind on an ABC regional radio interview.
Yes.
And she wasn't offensive. She didn't do anything
crazy.
Unusual. She made no defamatory comments. She just stated her opinion.
Yeah.
Well, the council took offence to that. They initiated a code of conduct against her. They found her guilty, and then the council as a whole subsequently censured her. Well, she didn't bother small changing it at the OLG.
Yep.
Or trying to convince the councillors that what they'd done was fundamentally wrong.
Fundamental shot, quick shot.
What she just did was she went, I think, to the New South Wales Supreme Court.
Yes.
And she bankrolled a defence, and she won. And the the action was found to be flawed, and that there was an apprehension of bias from the investigator, and in the end, she's been awarded her costs.
Yep.
And the council have to pay costs of the whole matter.
Yeah.
And I think,
what sort of dollars are we talking?
When that was announced, we were talking about 400K with significant invoices still to come.
And I wouldn't mind betting my ass without even looking at the case that their rates are going up next year,
Well, it could
just
be
like ours are.
$600,000. No, I think Kiama Council are running with a legal bill for 12 months, nudging 3 mil.
Yeah, right. So as if you're a ratepayer in council, my recommendation, my Kiama, sorry. Yeah. Where do I say?
Yeah, in council.
Ratepayer in council. A ratepayer in the Kiama area. Yes. Stop paying rates, ring them up so we're not paying while ever you guys are pissing money fair up the wall, because I'm telling you, these guys are a disaster, and it's Australia-wide. It's complete bullshit.
But that was a win for the good guys in respect of
it. Absolutely.
And there's been no what would you say, no follow-up from the Office of Local Government relative to that.
Of course not, because they know they were wrong.
But it's such a landmark ruling that it will affect the way that these codes of conduct are dealt with. So,
well, between Ron Honig actually trying seemingly to do some good work, and I generally have low expectations of anybody who's involved with the Labor Party.
Well,
I have low expectations, but then I also have equally low expectations of the Lib Nats that are just piddling in their own leagues.
Well, I listened to an interesting podcast last night about real estate, and the comment was that a politician will go and have a meeting with the people who own the properties, the landlords in the morning, and tell all the landlords that they're going to work in their behalf and everything will be good. Then they'll go and have lunch, and they'll go and have a meeting with the renters that afternoon, and they'll tell them they're going to put rent controls in place and their rents will be cheaper, and in the end nothing gets done.
That's pretty much how it works.
And they just spend the morning appeasing that group and the afternoon appeasing that group, and they go home at night, go to bed, get up the next day and do it all again.
None of them have the courage to say what they think. They haven't.
They don't change it.
No.
And the whole,
because the gig isn't about changing anything. It's about keeping themselves elected in those cushy jobs. Get paid, stay there. And there's this delusion that there's some sort of nobility or
they're serving the people.
Oh, well, yes. Well, arguably ripping them off and taking the absolute piss out of the whole population.
Finish up with an OAM and travel around.
Bankrupt Victoria and get yourself a little trophy from the king. What a spaz. But
let me just check. Now, have we got any messages from anyone tuned in just as to the quality of the
Well, we've got a Bob Taylor's enjoying the show. Sorry, Bob. I hope you don't mind me using your name. Maybe I should have said Bob. It's an interesting time there, Bob. We've got some messages here from Good Vibes.
Are we coming through loud and clear?
Not all freedom fighters wear capes.
Yeah.
Good job. Fair and true. Yes.
Let's check on this device.
There's a few devices where all the feedback's coming through. Go get them, fellas. Let the truth ring loud. Front page, subscribed, and live music. Yeah. Amen. We're getting a little bit of feedback here. Look, ladies and gentlemen, as well. Look, and we're pretty new to this side of doing it in this style. If you enjoy it, please let us know what you do like, what you don't like. And a better one, if you've got questions, send them through. It doesn't even have to be during the live stream. If you want myself or Councillor Irvine to have a bit of a look into a particular issue, maybe.
Oh, look, through the week, happy to work on stuff and bring stuff back.
Yeah. Like Councillor Irvine's made himself extremely available for the public, despite it being frowned upon by his I guess superiors in council, or are they superiors? How does that work?
I suppose they'd like to think that's the case, but
they'd like to think that's the case in all areas.
I'm far more egalitarian. I think we're all equal.
I think you're all equal as well.
But the one thing that's allowed me the freedom to perform my role is the fact that I went in knowing that sometimes councils get it wrong, and knowing what tactics they may employ in that process when they're dealing with it. So I've had a number of different people approach me over this term.
Yeah.
And they've been frustrated with the way they've been treated by council.
I find that terribly hard to understand.
And I've listened to them and look, I filter things out. I've got plenty of stuff.
You've got that's right.
Just not.
You're not going to jump on anybody's bandwagon over nonsense.
Looking for extra fights. I've got to.
Your plate is full.
Yeah.
Your cup runneth over.
Yeah. So I vet the situation, but if I think that they've got grounds and I think they've got a fair case to argue, well, I'll go into bat for them. Now, there's a number of people in the community that I feel were getting a very poor outcome, and I think that I've represented and I've achieved a good outcome for those people, a far better outcome that I received in the same circumstance prior. So, one thing that I've said, and I loathe the term because I've had a bad experience with the New South Wales Ombudsman.
Yeah.
I think they're useless.
Yeah.
But I think there is a role at a council for some form of ombudsman that can interact and be some sort of
liaise with both sides of a party.
Be on some sort of a conduit, because all the people that I've taken matters up on behalf of, I feel have been treated very poorly.
Yeah.
And I think they're satisfied with the way that they've been represented, and I think they're happy with the outcomes that
Which is why we elect individual councillors so that they can.
Yeah. I don't sit there and enjoy some of those conversations and some of those things that make my head hurt.
Oh yeah, go.
But I really do like using the skills that I've gained in my own journey and helping other people through this quagmire that is local government.
Yeah.
And even to the point, and this is the thing that the newspaper loves saying, that I'm taking legal action. I'm taking legal action against council. No.
How many lawyers have you engaged?
None. So
surely you've booked a few up to the ratepayer.
These NCAT matters that come up at NCAT. They're the result of freedom of information requests where council refused to give me the information I've asked for.
Can I give council some advice in that area? Just a little bit.
No, just hear me out. So what happens, and this is part of the freedom of information process, the GIPA, Government Information Public Access Act. If the council makes a decision that you're not happy with, there's a review mechanism, and you can ask for a review at NCAT.
Right.
Well, that's what I've done.
Yeah.
So I'm not happy with the answer, and then I have the matter reviewed at NCAT.
Yes.
That's it. It's not some great.
Hang on, according to the letter, from TEM-FM, they somehow, according to the paper, they were arbiters.
Yes.
Can you imagine those bumbling fools being arbiters of anything of any significance?
Not put myself in their hands.
Not a chance in the wide world. But what I was going to suggest, and I have no doubt there are representatives from the upper echelons of council here in the audience, and they'll certainly be watching playbacks, no doubt about it. If a councillor or a citizen asks you a question, if you want to save yourself all the hassle of freedom of information requests and hassles, stop hiding shit and just give them the information, and that'll be the end of this problem. I would reckon. If I go into council tomorrow and I say I'd like to know, here are my 5 questions for regarding perhaps Mr. Lavelle's status, perhaps the budget this year and what we've wasted on lawyers arguing with you. And I don't know.
Stopping me getting information.
Information. And where are we putting the nuclear power plant in Temora? Since I've nominated us with Mr. Dutton to put one up next to my house, what do I need to do to get these things approved? Instead of giving me the runaround on any of those questions, if you have answers for them, just give them. Don't lawyer up. There's nothing to hide. All you've got to do is answer the effing questions, and it's really not that difficult. Be clear, be transparent, be honest. And if you're not being any of those 3 things, you need to be removed from the space. You've got no business there, because there is nothing that I can think of, other than if there was children-related matters. No, there's nothing that should be hidden from the general public. Not a damn thing.
The way that the Government Information Public Access Act operates is there is a presumption that all government information is public access.
As it should be.
Unless there is a public interest against the release of that information. And it's the onus is on the respondent or the agency to prove
The
their
people
case.
shouldn't know that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so they have to prove the reasons why it is not in the public interest to know those details.
Yes. So if our rates have gone up by 4.5%,
things like that. If it's embarrassing, that's not a reason. It's got to be. There's got to be an argument that it's not in the public interest. So there is a few things, and look, the Government Information Public Access Act is really easy to read. It's only 60 pages or something like that, and like the key parts are quite accessible.
Yeah.
And these public interests against are quite easy to understand. It's a well-written act.
I just think the minute that any of these government mobs, be it councils, councillors, general managers employed by councils on ratepayer dollars, the minute they start going, oh, that's a secret, or no, we'll need a lawyer to the minute I heard that you asked that information, let's
go right back to before I got elected.
Yep.
Where the mayor and the general manager went in the Temora Independent, and the editor was quite happy to publish it. They published a heap of financial information about my business dealings with council.
Yes.
As a private businessman.
Yep.
And they were only too happy to do that.
Yep.
Well, okay. I go and ask them about some financial dealings.
Yes.
They won't tell me.
No, yours are
But they're quite happy to go and publish my financial dealings in the newspaper without my permission and not asking. But that's just how they roll.
Yeah.
But then I ask them about some financial dealings and they won't tell me.
Well, look, bullying traditionally only goes one way. It just so happens that at the moment we're giving a little bit of it back.
Well,
that's it. Let's be realistic.
Sort of
you're supposed to shut up and do as you're told. I'm certainly supposed to have shut up a long time ago, and I'm supposed to have done what I'm told.
The way it works is, I think by now I'm supposed to be ruined financially, ruined in business. My reputation is supposed to be spoiled.
Has your wife left you yet? Your kids hate you?
No more than
usual.
Yeah. And I haven't got a drinking problem. I haven't got a drug problem. I haven't got a gambling problem. I'm feeling okay.
Mental health's good. Feeling Mickey Mouse.
Order book's good at work. Getting on well with my friends. Getting on well with life. What's going on here?
Yeah, well, mate.
No, but
we're not doing that. The usual game's not being played.
And some people have said to me, "Oh, but it's consuming you." Well, it doesn't come for free.
There's a cost, and
there's got to be a cost. But what's the cost of not dealing with it,
mate? Look,
you can't live with yourself if you don't deal with this stuff. So it has to be dealt with. I didn't start it. I didn't start the fight, but I'm not going to walk away from it.
Yeah.
And I consider what I'm doing to be worthwhile.
Yep.
Like I say, they brought it to me, and I'm going to take it on, and I'm going to represent.
Mate, I think you've done everything you said you were going to do when you started out on this.
Well, I hope the community can understand what's going on, and I think over the next month or two, leading up to September, we'll have the opportunity. If anyone's got any questions or if they want stuff clarified, and even to this end, I'm an open book in that respect. I've already just received in the last 2 months notification that there's been 2 government information public access requests into my affairs in providing signage services for council.
Yeah.
So I don't know where they've originated from.
No, they're anonymous. You're allowed to do that anonymously, aren't you?
Well, I don't know how it works, but
hello, Moto. Maybe they'll sponsor the show. No, we don't want sponsors. Then people start telling us what we can and can't say. That's not going to happen.
Where were we?
Your public request information on your signage business, mate.
Yeah, so, and I've got no problems. There is nothing there. I've worked for council for over 20 years, probably 25 years.
Which is the least profitable years that you've worked for council?
Well,
probably the first and most recent.
The most recent years have been.
You're very popular. Who's that ringing?
Don't know.
There's somebody there, so probably a fan, or somebody desperate for you to not
I'd
talk.
say so. No, look, the last.
Has it been profitable for you to be on council? Has it been a benefit to your business, or has it actually been more challenging than?
No, it's been
cost.
It's been very difficult to balance the workload at council and the workload at my business.
Yes.
And also the amount of work that I've completed for council has diminished greatly.
Yep.
Over that period.
Not because you haven't been doing the work, it's because you haven't been offered the work in the same way.
There's been a number of reasons that we can go into in future shows.
We can do that. Yeah. We'll wind up here shortly.
I found that over one period of time there was a lot of matters that what would you say? There was a lot of demands placed on my time.
Yeah.
In other areas of involving council.
Yes.
That interfered with my ability.
Yep.
To get some jobs out the door. So you're only a one-man show, and if they load you up on one hand and then they if you're not getting something done on the other, it's a little bit difficult to manage that. I found that was very difficult to deal with, but I think
I'll give you a hand, but I can draw stick figures. My art's terrible.
I think I'm starting to get that back into balance, and I think that'll be okay. So
yeah. No, look, I think that's good. I think it's great that you're in great shape. I know that there's a mental toll with this. I've done one of my 7 or 8 campaigns I've been involved with. I've managed about 40 candidates in various elections and been involved in, getting. Well, I mean, I think two parliamentarians currently sitting at state level that I've had a reasonably large amount to do with. I know the cost that comes with it, the toll that it takes, the work that goes into it. It's bloody hard. And that's if you're trying to do stuff with integrity. I don't know what it's like for the guys who don't try and do anything with integrity. They seem to coast.
If you don't look, but life's like that. Life's easy if you don't care.
Yeah.
It's safe if you don't care. You don't get hurt if you don't care.
True.
You know what I mean? Like life's great if you're that personality that you can just go through and you can just close your eyes and not see that. And I didn't see that. And no. And you know what I mean? Like life's easy if you just cruise through like that. Some people aren't built like that.
Absolutely. Well, I'm not built like that. I can't just shut up and cop whatever the hell's thrown at me. I detest bullies at a rate of knots. And as soon as I get a bit of a whiff of some bullies, I feel the need to bully them back. And I think that's sort of where we're at with some of this sort of shit. I was supposed to shut up after that last newspaper article that was that was designed to shut me up. It was the best hit job in Australian history. I laughed it off, whatever. I owned the bits that I needed to own, and then I put it where it was supposed to be because you've had a crack at bullying me. Now I'm going
through the process, and you've been
absolutely,
and you've been held to account for your actions
for sure,
and you've been.
And more to the point, I held myself to account for my actions. I always did. I'm always the hardest critic of myself anyway. But that was an attempted hit job. Now, that's fine. I can live with that. That's rocking and rolling. But they've attempted to bully me. And now they've obviously come to me a week later or a couple of weeks later going, we want you to help us with an article. I'll give you an article. Print this in its entirety or you're not getting any support whatsoever. So we got that drivel that was in there today. Now, you're being arguably targeted in certain spaces by certain people. I have every intention of continuing to make all these people accountable. I have every intention of, we're going to do this every week, guys, every Thursday night. It'll be 7:30 till 8:30, 9 o'clock, obviously, depending on how long we go. I want people to be as interactive with us as possible. Send the questions. We've got Mandy telling us what a great show it is.
We need some feedback. We need some feedback on the production.
On the production quality.
Can you hear us? Is it clear?
There's nothing we can do about our heads.
No.
We're stuck with the looks we got. Can't do much there. There may be the odd week where we'll actually live stream people in.
Yes.
We've got some people there.
They're going to sort of work through.
We'll develop through it as we go. But also what you can do if you're happy with what we're producing so far, like the video, subscribe to the channel. So the Dean and Irv Spin Doctors is a YouTube channel now. The Rhyderlong page will gradually transform over to this. Apparently some 6 or 8 week turnaround before I can actually technically change the name. Some Facebook nonsense with where my accounts are. I'm always getting zooked. I'm always getting banned and all sorts of shit. But
it's a small price to pay when it allows you to, what would you say, offer an alternative to the
dribble. So, look, I've done it. Obviously, I've been sort of somewhat in the public eye for quite a few years now in this politically space. I've learned a couple lot on the chin. And there are a lot of people who are going to hate my guts regardless of what I do. Doesn't matter. I'll cure cancer tomorrow. He's still an asshole. He's still like, fair enough, whatever, cool. And there are going to be some people there who are going, I wasn't real sold on this guy, but now he's making a lot of sense. Or he did that and that wrong, but shit, he's solid there. And then there are some people who
counsellor.
There are some people who
I reckon there's a few
some people who like me, some people who like me a little bit, but I think they like me because they trust where I'm coming from. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I mean, obviously at work I'll sell you lots of stuff, happy to do that, but I'm not trying to sell you any bullshit. I don't care. The cost on me has been high over the years. You do become a public figure so that when you do something stupid, you get plenty of airtime, and I'm happy to own and honour all that one way or the other. Irvine here is sort of seemingly the same. Like he's gone in on a platform of, I want to do this. Now they're trying to stop him from doing that, but he's still doing it, and it comes at a great cost. So when people are watching these programs, one, it helps to watch. So like and subscribe, but also share them with your friends. Let them know. Open this door up. This is very important. I'm not going to ask you I'm not asking anybody for any money on here. I don't know about you. Yeah. We don't want any money. We don't want any sponsorships. We don't want to be silenced. But what we do need is for you guys to share that show with your friends. Jump on those Facebook posts. Give them some traction. Comment on them. Talk on them. And I know it hurts because
give us some questions.
The algorithm, Zook's algorithm requires interaction for it to get the next level of viewing. So if Councillor Irvine posts something and you like it, jump on there. Great. That's fantastic. What about the more conversation that happen on these pages, the more eyeballs, the more people can sort of, realistically support Anthony in council. He's obviously trying to get me to run. I'm very, I don't know about it, but here's what I would say. And the only reason that I would say that I'm skeptical isn't so much that I don't think I'll get in there and make an absolute rip roar. And as soon as they try to handcuff me in there, I'm going to get pretty cranky pretty quick. I've got a fairly low threshold for that sort of bullshit. But there are some really great people locally who are smart enough, have enough integrity and capability to go in and potentially get into this council and turn it back into what, if we're going to put up with councils, I fundamentally don't think they should exist. But if we're going to put up with them, they should be really driven by people who are elected by the people, driving it for the people, not a big yes man club. And put your hand up, because this guy's already knocked down a heap of barriers in there. You're not going to be bullied. You don't have to agree with he or I on everything, even anything much. If you're going to go in there as your own person, run your own race, so to speak, you will not be bullied and harassed. That barrier's already been knocked down. We just kicked that wall down. That's done now. They're still trying a little bit of it. There's some elements of it attempting it.
Yeah, but look how it's working well.
It's failing them miserably. Like I'm 100% confident that if you and I ran for council tomorrow, you'd get re-elected with, you got 10% in the last election, second most popularly elected councillor, I like to remind people. So out of all the councillors, this guy was number 2 behind the mayor who lost 10% of the vote. Don't know where that 10% went. Yeah. But, I'm sure I'd get 150 votes tomorrow. But more importantly, if we can find some guys and girls who have that inclination to get in there and are interested in the really hardcore local issues, please put your hands up. Hang glider guy, looks good. Will there be any live music? Actually, if you were a previous listener of the Rhyderlong program, we've got a few. There are some variables there. We can't play music like you would on a radio station. We don't have the licensing to do that. Councillor Irvine is pretty handy on a guitar, but we've also been working with the Den Divine guys from Queensland and a lot of the artists involved with them, and they're assuring me that they're going to be providing us with some actual original music and some of their covers and stuff like that. So there is actually going to be music coming, and as we go, we're going to try and structure it into little periods. We'll slide a few of these songs, and if there's anybody local or any upcoming artist that wants to get up and get involved in, you want to give us some songs to play, more than happy to give it a bash. We don't have anywhere near the handcuffs on us that we previously did.
No, we can sort something out.
What I will say though too, is if there are any independent artists out there, my Primo, I do have a little investment in it, but
you've declared it.
I've declared it. I do have a financial investment in a company called My Primo. It's arguably a cross between OnlyFans and Spotify. I'm going to have the founder on here next few weeks. It's a business venture with Ice Cube. He's one of the main directors in the company. It's an Australian-built company which raised $1 million. Come out of Perth.
Yeah.
But for creators and independent artists, the reason I got into it was because I looked at the setup, and it's sort of halfway between Spotify and OnlyFans, where if you're an artist that only has 50 fans, but they buy all of your shit, you get to keep 80% of the profit, so you can really control your market. Whereas with iTunes and Spotify, their artists basically getting raped and pillaged left, right, and center if you don't make enough money. So check that out. Again, I'm not being paid for that, but I do have a financial interest in that company. If you've got sign work to do, this bloke's a sign writer.
Yeah, but we're going pretty good. We've got a lot on our plate.
Look,
look, I always welcome new customers, but I've got a lot of work on for a lot of good loyal customers, and to that end, we're really grateful. And that was it was really comforting to note that when people stopped supporting our business for whatever reason, that void got filled very quickly. So that part of it is one worry I don't have, and that's really reassuring, just to go into work each day and know that know that you've got something meaningful to do. So that part of it, I can only be grateful for.
Fantastic. No, and I agree. And obviously, if you need a new or used car, I'm your guy. I don't really do the cooking thing if I can avoid it anymore, but I'll get you in a set of wheels, no problem at all. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks everybody for tuning in. This was our first crack under this format. Obviously, Councillor Irvine could talk, or Councillor Irvine and I could talk for another 10 years on these topics because we're fairly passionate about it. But the reason we're passionate about it is because we feel like you guys as citizens are getting a raw deal in a lot of cases, and sometimes you just need somebody to lead with the chin to open those doors, knock down a few barriers, and realistically defend the people who don't have anybody else defending them.
And just actually get the true story and find out what is going on.
Absolutely. So, ladies and gentlemen, please, reach out with the good and the bad. We're happy to take bad feedback. I get it all the time. It's usually in the paper. But, really, we thank you for joining us. Hopefully, you'll join us again next week. Again, share it with your friends, post it, like it, all that sort of stuff. And I hope everyone has a great week.
Yeah, you too.
Righto, guys. Thank you for tuning in. See you next week, 7:30 on the Dean and Irv Spin Doctors.